When we last left the Claib Jones autobiography, he had just broke up the Talt and John Wright factions of the Feud. Claib Jones had a huge disagreement with Dolph Draughn over the prisoners. The men were safely placed in the Prestonsburg Floyd County jail. Cicero Cox was hand-chosen by Jones to serve as an extra guard in case Wright would try to break them out of jail. Now, we go forward in the story of Claib Jones as he tells his time in office in Knott County. He tells us of his feud with Ans Hays and the jailbreak that led to the death of Miles Vance, the fallout between Vance and the Bates families, and his role in the French and Eversole War. We will end the autobiography with the death of Claib Jones. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine! Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up the time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine, but it convinces YouTube that we need a bigger time machine to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. Claib runs for jailer. Claib Jones went to Hyman, Kentucky for a time. Isom Sloan, the Prestonsburg jailer, had resigned his post, and Jones was appointed in his place as the county had 1 year until its election for its officers. Jones didn't feel that he had a chance to run for the office, as the Republican base was not very large in Knott County. There were only 84 people registered to vote on that ticket in Knott County. Word got out that rebel Captain Ans Hays was running for the office, so Jones felt that he would give him an opponent in the race, because they were both against each other in the Civil War. Hays ran on the Democratic ticket and Jones on the Republican ticket. Jones won the election by 184 majority vote. This didn't sit well with the captain, and he swore that he would run Jones out of the county for the slight. War between Hays and Jones. Jones was pretty confident since he had licked Hays in many Civil War battles. He felt that he could pretty well handle him during this part of their conflict with each other. So, instead of leaving Knott County, Jones forced Hays to leave instead. Hays and his men would come into the county from time to time to spy on Jones and to see what he was up to. Jones says that he could tell when one of them was in town by the way Sarah Duke's dog would bark. One day, while Jones was driving in his cattle for the night, several men from the Hays faction hid in the bushes. They shot 6 rounds at Jones. He fell to the ground as if he was dead. He calls the men cowards because they did not come to check on him to see if he was dead or not. He said that not a bullet hit him because they were poor marksmen, but they left him laying on the ground. As soon as Jones knew that they had left, he got up and he finished driving home his cattle. But this wasn't over yet. He also claims that they had shot at him several times over the next little while trying to kill him. Finally, Jones had enough of that, and he went to the jail and summoned several men to help guard the jail. Hays went and got warrants out for Jones and his men for banding and gave them to the sheriff for their arrests. Jones also had warrants out for Hays and his factions for shooting at him and trying to kill him. Jones finally summoned some of the men to go with him, and they took to the brush to hunt the Hays faction and arrest them. It was uncertain on how long both factions were in the brush before Claib finally came back into town and made his headquarters in the jail. That same night, the Hall faction came into town and took up their headquarters in the old drawn fort across the street. Jones sent a message inviting the group to come to the jail for supper free of charge and on him. They sent a message back to Jones stating that they thanked him very kindly for the offer, but they had already eaten. Jones sent a message back telling them to surrender as he had warrants out for their arrest, and they sent a message back saying that they refused to surrender. The shots then began ringing out in the town's mountain air that night from both sides. After a while, Jones' men were able to drive the Hays faction from the upper floor of their fort to the underfloor. Claib Jones had noticed the front door was ajar and took a shot. The shot went past Lewis Hays, who was standing at the fireplace, struck a rock, bounced back, and struck Hays in the stomach. Hays sent word to Jones that he was shot and wanted to go home and die. It was only afterwards that it was discovered that Hays only wanted to go home and change his clothes. A few days later, officers tried to capture and arrest the Hays faction. In the attempt, John Sloan was killed and Andy Sloan was wounded. It was not long after this that the sheriff sent word that he would send the Hays faction back to Buckhorn and that he would destroy the warrants that they had against Jones. In return, he requested that Jones destroy the warrants that he had against the Hays faction. After the fight, Jones went down to the old drawn fort and took 3 brass kettles that belonged to Aunt Rachel Hays. Miss Hays came to Jones looking for the pots. Jones told her that he had captured the pots and that they were now his. He did send the pots back to her after a short time, though. And that was the end of the Jones-Hays feud. Jailbreak and the Vance-Bates feud. Law and order was restored to Knott County and everything resumed its normal course. Several outlaws were captured, arrested, tried, and convicted and sent to the pen in Frankfort, Kentucky. While they were in the court system, it was Jones' duty to watch over them, and Jones claims that he had a great bunch of guards working for him. One night, several men made a raid for a jailbreak and release of the prisoners. They used a sledgehammer to try to break through the door. The guards caught them and a shootout began. Miles Vance, brother to Dick Vance, was killed in the shootings, but no one was able to escape the jail and the raiders were forced away. The Vance and Bates families, who were also allies with Jones during the Jones-Hall-Wright feud, soon began to fight against each other. Several men were killed on both sides. Peace only came to the county when the posse was formed and forced both sides to back down. Peace was once again restored to Knott County. The French and Eversole War. While Claib was still serving as jailer in Knott County, the French and Eversole War broke out in Perry County. The war broke out between lawyers who were wealthy and influential men. On one side was B. F. French, and on the other side was Joseph Eversole. 50 men, including Joseph Eversole, the leader of one faction, was killed in the conflict. We will get into this war in our Appalachian Feud series. But for now, we will return to the Claib Jones part of this war. Claib states that he went to Perry County to survey the situation. He then accompanied several citizens who went to Frankfort, Kentucky to secure an order for 50 soldiers to help restore peace. The soldiers went to Perry County and captured the leaders together with their men. After a change of venue for the trial was made to Clark and Fayette counties, and several attempts were made to bring the different factions to trial, a general amnesty was granted and everyone was liberated. And thus ended Claib Jones' part in the war. The death of James Claybourn Jones. Claib Jones does not state what he was doing for the next 20 years of his life, other than he had joined a church and he felt that his soul was cleared of all that he had done before then. Throughout his sordid life, he had never once been shot, although he had been stabbed and or beaten on several occasions. More than 100 men would die in his encounters. He would die in his old age, a very content man. Claib Jones would die in Warren, Knott County, Kentucky, on November 27, 1914. He would be laid to rest in a private cemetery in Hazard, Kentucky by D. Y. Combs, one of the wealthiest men in Perry County. Combs would state that Jones saved the life of his father when he was captured and court-martialed by Jones's men. They attempted to kill him, and Jones put a stop to it. The Combs family was very thankful for this action, and so he had a place of honor among the Combs family. His funeral was attended by a large number of people. This ends our look at the autobiography of Claib Jones. We hope that you have enjoyed our look at his life as he retold it. Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian Outlaws. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click that bell notification button. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries of Appalachian history.